To France 24, I'm Louise Hanna. First to Venezuela, where an ally of President Hugo Chavez has been re-elected as leader of the National Assembly. It means Diosdado Cabello will become the country's interim president if Chavez becomes too unwell to govern. Well, he's currently in Cuba with a severe lung infection following a fourth operation for cancer. He's supposed to be sworn in for another 6-year term as president on Thursday. But last night, his vice president said he could take the oath at a later date. Well, the opposition is dead against this and says Mr. Cabello should take over if President Chavez can't make Thursday's inauguration. George Ciccariello Maher, an assistant professor of political science at Drexel University in the US, has more on the significance of Cabello's re-election.
Well, the simple fact that an ally of Chavez has been re-elected is no surprise at all. After all, the Chavistas control the majority of the National Assembly, and actually this represents no change because Diosdado Cabello was the president of the National Assembly up to this point. What it does show, however, is that the sort of opposition rumors that were spreading through the press that there is a sort of deepening division between Nicolás Maduro and Diosdado Cabello are very much false, or at least there's no tendency toward some kind of division expressing itself in the short term. Diosdado Cabello will remain in control of the National Assembly, and Nicolás Maduro will remain as the vice president. And I think also it shows that this question of who will temporarily take over is slightly overblown, because we're talking about a 30-day period, more or less, before new elections are held. And so the head of the National Assembly would not really be able to accomplish all that much in that period. And it's really just a space filler until the elections are called. And we already know that Maduro will be the candidate in those elections.
Well, let's talk about in the event that Chavez is no longer able to govern and fresh presidential elections are called. Who'd win?
Nicolás Maduro would win. The Chavista bloc would win. The reality is that, Chavez won by what in any country would be considered a landslide in October, nearly 12 percentage points. And we could count on Nicolás Maduro losing some of those on the basis of not being Chavez, on the basis of being slightly less charismatic. He would also probably win some back on the basis of a sympathy vote, especially if the election were held very soon. If we have a very sick Chavez and people are voting for the successor to Chavez with some sympathy, then he would gain back some of those votes, because 12 percentage points would be really a lot to squander.
So what does this now say about Venezuela's opposition? It's dead in the water already.
I think it really does, but the reality is this is an opposition that's been dead in the water for many years and more than a decade now. It has only recently been able to create a modicum of unity behind the candidacy of Enrique Capriles Rodonsky, and as we saw, again, Chavez beat Rodonsky, the best opposition candidate that they've been able to field, by 12 percentage points. This is essentially the maximum that you're going to see out of the opposition. And so unless they're, in the long run, over the next 6 or so years, unless there's a steep fall-off in the number of Chavistas who actually mobilize and go to the polls, the opposition still doesn't look like it has much of a chance at winning elections.
Rebels in Central African Republic have seized 2 more towns just days before they're supposed to start peace talks. They're now in control of 12 towns since launching their rebellion nearly a month ago. They accuse the government of failing to honour a 2007